When you send a message on ChatGPT, where does it go? Not to the cloud. The cloud is a building, a massive building, probably in Virginia or Texas or Singapore, filled with tens of thousands of servers, drawing enormous amounts of electricity, consuming millions of gallons of water every day to stay cool during 24 hours a day. Every day, the air revolution is not happening in the sky; it is happening in specific zip codes next to specific communities, drawing from specific power grids, specific water tables, and those communities increasingly are saying enough is enough. So, in this episode, we are going to cover the data centers and who pays the price of them. So, a modern hyperscale AI data center can sprawl over 2,000 acres, roughly 3,000 football pitches inside rows of servers. Each NVIDIA H100 GPUs draws or even consumes over 700 watts. Data center with 100,000 of those draw 70 megawatts from the processors alone. And cooling, networking, backup power, you're consuming as much power as a medium-sized CST. So the water consumption matches 1 to 5 million gallons per day, mostly for evaporative cooling, literally evaporating enormous volumes of water to absorb heat. By 2030, US data processing may consume more electricity than all US steel, aluminum, and cement manufacturers combined. AI is a physical industrial revolution. It just has an excellent PR. So communities near data centers are noticing and fighting back. In Indianapolis, residents opposed a Google data center for months before Google withdrew. In Memphis, Tennessee, Elon Musk, XAI built gas turbines to power a data center without proper environmental permits. The NACP and Earth Justice filed a lawsuit over air pollution affecting predominantly black community. In New Jersey, New York, and Maryland, legislators introduced bills for moratoriums on new construction between March and June 2025. Community opposition blocked or delayed $98 billion in data center projects. In January 2026 alone, at least 25 projects were cancelled. Over 230 environmental organizations called on Congress for national moratorium. So the benefits promised to communities, jobs, economic growth, the reality, data centers are highly automated. They hire very few people locally, and the costs are tangible. High electricity bills from grid demand, water tables pressure, noise, air quality issue. The PEWE research in 2026 found more Americans believe data centers have negative effect on their community than a positive one. The tech industry promised shared prosperity, communities got shared cost. So the question is, should a company be able to build a water consuming power hungry data center next to a community without the community's consent? So the same wave hitting American communities is heading to Africa. So up to 56 new data centers facilities planned to Africa by 2027. South Africa receives $1.5 billion in new data centers investment in 2026 alone. A $720 million AI factory infrastructure rollout, the first dedicated AI factory infrastructure on the continent, launched in 2026. On one hand, this is exactly what Africa needs: sovereign data infrastructure, a local processing, the reduced dependence on European and American cloud providers sourced to African data, subject to foreign laws. On the other hand, who is building these facilities under our terms? Cassava Technologies partnered with NVIDIA for GPU-powered African data centers, but that hardware plugs Africa into American dominated cloud ecosystems. Microsoft, Google, Amazon are expanding African infrastructure, but they own the servers, they write the terms, and when data leaves the facility, it lives on their terms, and the environmental questions are the same. In hot African climates, cooling is even more energy intensive and expensive. Traditional air cooling can consume 30% of facilities' total power in equatorial heat. Water scarcity in parts of East Africa makes evaporative cooling deeply problematic. The infrastructure may be built locally, the cost may be borne locally, the value may still flow out. So, what should African governments demand when negotiating data center deals? Four non-negotiables. First, ownership stake. African entities should own a meaningful percentage, not just hosting fees. Second, energy agreements. Data center must run on African renewable energy, not imported diesel or gas turbines that pollute communities. Third, employment guarantees, real technical jobs, operations, security, data science, not just consumption work. Fourth, data sovereignty clauses. Data generated by African user must be the subject to African law, not California law or not to California law, only African law. So the window to negotiate those terms is right now before the infrastructure is locked in. Once the servers are installed, once the contracts are signed, once the economic dependencies are created, the leverage is gone. Ask anyone who negotiated oil contracts in the 1970s. So, in episode 6, who's making the rules? We're going to talk about the AI policies around the world and what Africa actually is doing about it. So, yeah, I am a host. So, see you on the next episode.